Before the world sees who you become, you must face who you are. Your relationship with money is not built in your wallet. It is built in the stories you tell yourself. The moment you stop performing for approval, your real wealth begins. The hunger for status is older than money itself. Introduction. The emotional debt of trying to impress others. How modern social pressure created the culture of pretending. Modern society has transformed the idea of success into a public performance. In earlier generations, people lived with far fewer witnesses. Achievements were private, mistakes were quiet, and daily life unfolded without an audience. Today, almost every choice we make is visible. We live under a constant lens, one that not only observes us, but evaluates us. This visibility has created a new form of pressure, the pressure to appear successful, even when we are still building that success. The culture of pretending did not emerge from vanity alone. It was born from a growing fear of falling behind. As social media accelerated, it brought with it a relentless stream of carefully curated lives, images of vacations, luxury purchases, celebrations, and accomplishments. These glimpses are not windows into reality, but highlights designed to create an impression. Yet the human mind does not easily distinguish between performance and truth. When we see others displaying success, we instinctively measure ourselves against them, even if we know the comparison is unfair. The result is a subtle emotional debt, a sense that we must catch up, even when there is nothing to catch up to. This pressure shapes behavior more than most people admit. Many individuals begin to make financial decisions based not on their needs or long-term goals, but on what they believe will signal progress to others. They stretch their budgets to buy symbols of achievement, hoping these signs will protect them from judgment, exclusion, or the quiet fear of being perceived as less. Over time, the performance becomes a routine. It turns into a parallel life, an identity built for the outside world, often disconnected from the truth of one's financial reality. What makes this culture particularly damaging is how invisible its consequences are. Pretending provides short-term relief, a compliment, a like, a moment of social acceptance. But the long-term cost is heavy. People accumulate items, experiences, and commitments that do not reflect their true values. They trade financial stability for momentary validation. Instead of building a foundation for real wealth, they build a facade that requires constant maintenance. The more effort goes into sustaining the image, the harder it becomes to step away from it. At its core, this pressure is emotional, not economic. Human beings are wired to seek belonging. We have an inherent need to be seen, understood, and valued. The culture of pretending exploits this need. It whispers that our worth is measured by visibility, that our progress must be displayed, and that success only counts when it is witnessed. This belief traps countless people in cycles of overspending, self-doubt, and quiet anxiety. They feel compelled to show a version of themselves that aligns with what they think society expects. Understanding how this pressure developed is the first step toward freeing ourselves from it. When we recognize that the culture of pretending is not a personal flaw but a social phenomenon, we begin to reclaim control. We learn to separate genuine goals from public expectations. We observe our own choices with more honesty, seeing where they serve our future and where they serve only an audience. This book begins here, by unveiling the emotional forces that lead us to perform instead of build. Only by acknowledging them can we start the journey toward a life defined by authenticity rather than appearance, and toward wealth that is real, not staged. Stay status as an emotional stimulus, not a financial one. Status feels like a financial concept, but at its core, it is entirely emotional. When people try to impress others, they rarely think about the numbers, the long-term consequences, or the real cost of their decisions. What they think about, often without realizing it, is the feeling they expect to receive. Approval, admiration, belonging. These emotional rewards become powerful motivators, sometimes stronger than logic or financial reasoning. That is why status often leads people to make choices that contradict their own goals. The emotional impulse overrides the rational mind. Human beings are motivated less by money itself, and more by what they believe money represents. For some, it symbolizes security. For others, freedom. But in today's culture, money has increasingly become a symbol of recognition. It signals that someone has made it. This is why so many individuals prioritize looking successful rather than building the foundation for true success. They are not chasing wealth. They are chasing the emotional high that comes from being seen in a certain way. What makes this dynamic so powerful is the speed at which emotional rewards can be obtained. Financial rewards require patience, planning, discipline, and consistency. Emotional rewards, however, can be gained instantly. A compliment, a reaction, a glance of admiration, or a moment of perceived superiority. These brief emotional boosts can feel intoxicating. They create a feedback loop where people continually seek external validation, even when it conflicts with their financial well-being. This explains why individuals sometimes invest more in how their lifestyle appears than in the stability of the life itself. A car becomes more than a vehicle. It becomes a statement. A watch becomes more than a tool. It becomes a signal. A vacation becomes more than rest. It becomes a performance. None of these decisions are inherently negative, but when they are made primarily to trigger emotional responses, they stop being expressions of genuine desire and become responses to social pressure. It is easy to underestimate how deeply these emotional triggers influence behavior. Many people believe they are making practical choices, when in reality, they are responding to subtle fears. Fear of being overlooked, fear of not being respected, fear of falling behind. These emotions quietly shape spending habits, career decisions, and even personal identity. The result is a life that may look impressive on the outside, but feels fragile on the inside. Understanding status as an emotional stimulus allows us to see why its pursuit is so exhausting. Emotional highs are temporary. They fade quickly, leaving behind an urge to recreate the feeling. This cycle can lead to impulsive spending, chronic comparison, and a constant tension between who someone is and who they feel expected to be. Over time, the emotional chase becomes a source of stress rather than satisfaction. Breaking free from this cycle requires a shift in perspective, learning to recognize when a decision is truly aligned with personal values, rather than motivated by the desire to provoke a certain response from others. When people learn to separate emotional impulse from financial intention, they reclaim control. They begin to invest in what brings lasting fulfillment instead of chasing the fleeting approval that status promises. True stability, emotional and financial, begins when we understand that status is not something to display but something to redefine. It becomes a quiet confidence built internally rather than a performance projected externally. This book will guide you toward that transformation, from the emotional pursuit of appearing successful to the steady, grounded experience of becoming successful in a way that is authentic, sustainable, and deeply personal. The difference between real success and visible success. One of the greatest confusions in modern life is the belief that what can be seen must also be real. Visible success has become the standard by which many people measure themselves, yet it rarely reflects the truth of someone's life. Real success is quiet, patient, and often invisible. Visible success is immediate, loud, and designed to be noticed. Understanding the difference between these two forms of success is essential, because mistaking one for the other leads countless individuals into financial and emotional traps. Visible success is built for the audience. It is shaped by perception rather than substance. It relies on symbols, cars, clothes, experiences, and curated moments meant to project an image of accomplishment. These symbols can create the illusion of progress, but they do not guarantee stability. They are fragile because they depend on approval. They need to be maintained. And when the applause fades, so does the sense of confidence they temporarily provide. Real success, by contrast, grows silently. It is rooted in habits, discipline, and decisions that do not attract attention. Saving consistently, living below one's means, learning new skills, managing debt wisely, building emotional resilience, none of these actions are celebrated publicly. They do not generate praise or admiration, yet they are the foundation on which lasting success is built. Real success strengthens your life from the inside, even if no one else can see the transformation. The challenge is that visible success is often easier to imitate than real success is to build. Anyone can purchase the appearance of achievement, even without the underlying financial health to support it. A lifestyle can be financed through credit, but true financial freedom cannot. Visible success may create a temporary sense of pride, but it does not offer security or peace of mind. In fact, it often creates more pressure, because once someone begins performing success, they feel compelled to continue the performance even when it becomes unsustainable. Real success demands courage. It requires resisting the temptation to prove yourself through outward displays. It asks you to invest in the things that matter most, even if they are not immediately recognized by others. It requires the patience to build a life that is strong rather than impressive, stable rather than flashy. The rewards are deeper and far more enduring. Confidence that does not depend on validation, financial choices that support long-term freedom, and a sense of identity grounded in authenticity rather than performance. The distinction between real and visible success is crucial, because many people chase the second while sacrificing the first. They pour their energy into keeping up appearances instead of strengthening their foundation. They measure their progress by what others can see, rather than by the quality of their own lives. This confusion leads to stress, insecurity, and a life that feels constantly on display. Recognizing this difference is the turning point. When you stop seeking success that can be photographed and start building success that can be lived, you step out of the status trap. You begin to value progress that is meaningful rather than visible. You make decisions that align with your future, not with an audience's expectations. And you discover that the most powerful form of success is the one that does not need to be shown in order to exist. This book will continue guiding you toward that deeper form of success, a success that is real, sustainable, and entirely yours. The psychological cost of wanting to belong. The desire to belong is one of the most powerful forces shaping human behavior. It is older than money, older than society, and older than the idea of success itself. Throughout history, belonging meant survival. To be part of a group offered protection, identity, and purpose. Today, the stakes are no longer physical, but the emotional need remains just as strong. This longing, however, has taken on new forms, and with them, new psychological costs. When belonging becomes dependent on appearance, people begin to carry a silent burden, the pressure to look like they fit in, even when they do not feel that they truly do. Belonging should come from connection, shared values, and mutual respect. Yet for many, it has been replaced by performance. Instead of being accepted for who they are, individuals feel judged by what they can display. They fear being excluded, misunderstood, or labeled as less. This fear does not always appear dramatically. It often emerges in subtle thoughts, hesitating before declining an expensive invitation, feeling pressure to keep up with friends who spend freely, or worrying about how financial limitations might be perceived. Over time, these small internal conflicts accumulate into a psychological debt that weighs heavily on one's sense of worth. The cost of this emotional burden is deeper than most people recognize. When someone feels compelled to present a certain image to maintain acceptance, they begin to divide their identity. One version is shown to the world, polished, composed, and seemingly in control. The other version, hidden underneath, may be anxious, overwhelmed, or uncertain about the future. This inner split creates tension that can affect mental health, relationships, and financial behavior. It becomes exhausting to manage both realities, especially when the external image is built on expenses that stretch beyond one's comfort or capacity. In this state, financial decisions become emotional decisions. People accept commitments they cannot comfortably afford because they fear being left out. They buy items not because they need them, but because they believe these items are tickets to acceptance. This leads to a cycle where belonging is pursued through spending, but the spending itself creates anxiety that pushes genuine belonging further away. Instead of feeling connected, individuals feel pressured. Instead of feeling seen, they feel evaluated. The psychological cost intensifies because the approval gained through appearance is fragile. It relies on continuous performance. A moment of financial restraint may feel like a step backward in the eyes of others. The fear of losing acceptance becomes a quiet but constant companion, influencing choices in ways that undermine emotional well-being. People begin to measure their value not by who they are, but by how convincing their image appears. This is a painful trade because it distances them from authenticity, the very thing that creates lasting connection. Escaping this psychological burden requires understanding that true belonging cannot be purchased or performed. It is built through honesty, boundaries, and relationships that value the person, not the presentation. When individuals stop viewing belonging as something that must be earned through appearance, they regain emotional freedom. They choose relationships that support their growth. They make financial decisions aligned with their goals instead of their fears. And they discover that the people who truly matter are not impressed by symbols. They are drawn to sincerity. This book aims to guide you toward that shift. By recognizing the hidden emotional cost of wanting to belong, you take the first step toward redefining what belonging really means. You begin to build a life where acceptance comes from authenticity, financial choices come from intention, and the pursuit of status no longer overshadows the pursuit of peace. How this book will help you escape the trap. Escaping the status trap begins with awareness, but it does not end there. Understanding the emotional forces that drive the need to impress others is the foundation, yet true transformation requires learning new ways of thinking, choosing, and relating to both money and identity. This book is designed to guide you through that process, to help you recognize the hidden patterns that have shaped your decisions, and to replace them with choices that support long-term stability, confidence, and peace. The first way this book will help you is by revealing the mechanisms behind the pressure to appear successful. When you can clearly see how comparison, social expectations, and emotional triggers influence your behavior, you gain the power to respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. You begin to understand why certain purchases feel urgent, why some invitations are hard to decline, and why the desire to be seen often competes with the desire to be financially secure. Awareness turns what once felt automatic into something you can examine and reshape. The second way this book supports your journey is by challenging the beliefs that keep the trap alive. Many people carry unspoken assumptions about success, that it must be public, that it must look impressive, and that it must be validated by others. These assumptions create pressure that is both unnecessary and harmful. Throughout these chapters, you will learn how to replace borrowed definitions of success with ones that truly reflect your values. You will discover that the most meaningful progress cannot always be seen from the outside, and that genuine achievement does not require an audience. Next, this book will help you build healthier financial habits that align with your long-term well-being. Instead of focusing on outward displays, you will learn how to prioritize choices that strengthen your foundation. Saving consistently, making informed decisions, reducing unnecessary commitments, and investing in your future rather than your image. These habits are simple but powerful. Over time, they create a life that feels steady, resilient, and free from the constant need to prove anything. Another essential aspect of escaping the status trap is emotional clarity. This book will guide you through understanding the difference between emotional spending and intentional spending. You will learn to identify the moments when a purchase is a response to anxiety, comparison, or fear, and how to redirect those impulses toward actions that bring genuine satisfaction. By developing emotional awareness, you regain control over your financial life. Your decisions become grounded rather than reactive, thoughtful rather than pressured. Finally, this book offers a new vision of what a fulfilling, meaningful life can look like. It shows you that real wealth is found not in presentation, but in stability, freedom, and peace of mind. It teaches you how to create a life where you no longer feel torn between who you are and who you think you need to appear to be. Instead of performing success, you will learn to build it from the inside out, quietly, patiently, and authentically. Every chapter is a step away from the noise of external expectations and toward a deeper sense of personal clarity. By the end of this journey, you will have the tools to break free from the emotional debt of trying to impress others and to build a life rooted in confidence rather than comparison. The status trap loses its power the moment you choose to define success on your own terms, and this book is here to help you make that choice with strength, intention, and clarity. If you believe this chapter could help someone, feel free to share it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this audiobook, please like and subscribe. Your support truly helps us keep creating more content like this.